Thank you. Morning. I'm going to count heads here to see if we have a quorum. How many we've got? I got one, two, three, four, five, six. I'm seven. I see at least seven, so we do have a quorum. I don't know if my screen's showing everybody, but let's acknowledge the existence of a quorum. And Stephen, please let the minutes reflect those of the names of the members who are present. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the agenda that I circulated earlier?
I move acceptance of the agenda.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Okay, not hearing any objections, we will consider the agenda that was circulated previously adopted by unanimous consent. Minutes, we circulated the minutes of our November meeting. That draft has gone around. Anybody, any proposed changes?
Yes, I do. If you could be so kind as to add my name to section 4, the Budget Reserve Working Group.
Oh, okay, that's an oversight.
My apologies, Dylan. I don't know how I missed that.
No worries.
Okay, great. Anything else? Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as amended?
Yeah, move to adopt amended.
Second.
Okay, fine. Not hearing any oppositions, we will consider the minutes as we just amended them from the November meeting adopted by unanimous consent. We have a speaker this morning. And I am looking on the screen to see if he's there. Yeah, I see him waving. You know, now I'm getting a taste of what it's like to being on the other side here. And the screen with the room in it is that little square is so small I can't even see faces. And actually the camera's a little out of kilter. So, all right, thank you. That's Mike Cavallino.
Yes, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Nice to meet you, sort of, not in person. Mike is the director of our county Department of Finance. He has graciously agreed to come to meet with us this morning to talk about the issue of budget reserves that we've been batting about now for several months. And I'm going to let our working group, I don't know if it's Dylan, Mike, David, Jeff, which of you wants to lead it off on behalf of the working group, but I will turn it over to you to lead that discussion at this time.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We sent you some questions, some general areas that we're interested in.
Sure.
Open-ended questions. So I basically, can we turn it over to you?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, good morning again. Thank you all for having me here today. I'd just like to start off with saying I did watch the session that you had with Kate Stewart, the most recent council president and the chair of the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. And I would say that I agree with pretty much everything that she said about this. I don't recall that I would disagree with anything that she said about, especially the reserves. She's spot on. She's one of the folks that we have with us when we're talking to the rating agencies every year, when we're doing our general obligation bond issue. And the reason she's there is because she is the head of the Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee. We've been having council members attend these meetings with us for decades now. It has worked very well. It means the council is engaged and their staff is engaged as well. So that has worked very well for us. In addition, 2010 was a bad year for America, most of the world, economically anyway. And that was the time when we first put most of these fiscal policies together in a form that is very formal, in the form of resolutions normally, but things had been in the charter and in the law before then to codify or to formalize these policies. But 2010 was a definite inflection point. It was a very important period for us, and it was really the dawn of sort of making sure that your fiscal policies are robust and living. One of the things that they have to be is living. They have to be evergreen. They have to be able to be modified as circumstances dictate. So over the last 15 years, we've been very well served by the fiscal policies that we've had. They have been modified a few times over the 15 years. They've been modified when it was appropriate to modify them. They get reviewed more frequently than they get modified. All three of the main rating agencies, the ones that we rely on for ratings for our debt or our credit, all give us high marks. And one of the things they give us high marks for is the fact that we have very robust fiscal policies in place. And I recall that in one of the meetings, and I also was able to see part of the Gene Smith interview. Gene, if you recall, is the deputy director of the council staff. I agreed with the things that I saw him say as well. I don't think he diverged from what Kate Stewart had said. One of the things that we really need to be aware of is how you actually formalize these policies. I believe we're optimal at this point. I'm not saying the policies are optimal. I think the policies are very good. They're very robust. We've gotten only positive feedback from the debt markets, from the rating agencies, from the credit markets on our policies. And as you're aware, because you talked about it, the reserve policy was reviewed by one of our financial advisors, currently our main financial advisor, and that was forwarded to the county council earlier this year, and they'll be taking action on it at some time in the near future, I'm sure.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
when you say policies, are you primarily referring to what's in the code?
The code in resolution, because the resolutions aren't actually written into the code, although they are the law, and in the charter. And the charter is part of the code technically too, I believe. So yeah, all those. And the fiscal policies are in a resolution, and that resolution again has been modified a couple times over the last 15 years. Last time was 3 or 4 years ago. Having them in resolution or in the law as opposed to in the charter provides flexibility that's actually important and would be noted by some of the rating agencies as being important. They wouldn't say it this way, but because of the way we have done, especially the reserves policy, having it be in a resolution or in the law, because it could be in the law as well. It doesn't have to be in the form of a resolution, although the resolution gives immediate flexibility in that it would take council slightly less time to actually amend and adopt a new resolution if circumstances required. The issue with having it in the charter is that it wouldn't be seen as evergreen by the rating agencies. We're able to, under GAAP, generally accepted accounting standards, and under GASB, we're allowed to count the RSF and the undesignated general fund reserves as available through the reserve policy and only through the reserve policy. Whereas if it was in the charter, at least one rating agency would not let us count it. So all of a sudden we would lose most of our reserves if that were to happen. So it's important that I believe that it's very important that we keep them in the form that they are right now, in the law or in a resolution, as opposed to in the charter. And that allows the elected officials to take action on them as circumstances require. 2010 was a circumstance that required them to take action. 1991 was a period where we would have benefited greatly from having these standards and these policies in place formally. We didn't have them in place formally in 1991. I believe former Senator Dennis would remember 1991. The state had a terrible budget problem at that point in time. I was actually a state budget employee at that time and worked on it from that side of the equation.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. That year we had special sessions that resulted in local governments losing an enormous amount of state aid and state funding, and that was nothing that we could have been avoided with the policies. But how we were able to react would have been guided by these policies, wherever the policies would be.
And is it not because the state is required to have a balanced budget?
Yes, every government in Maryland, as you noted, is required to have a balanced budget.
Correct. Thank you.
Can I chime in here? And I don't want to speak on behalf of the working group who's really been looking at this extensively without my assistance. But it's been my understanding that the group has been trying to find a way not to sort of embed in the charter these kinds of things that you say would be problematic, or to put handcuffs on the council in any way. But I think my sense is they've been trying to find a way to embed in the charter the very principles that you're talking about, that state as a matter of principle that the county council does have this flexibility, but it also has this responsibility. It's the overarching responsibility to do all these things that I think that they're trying to see if it belongs in the charter as a statement of our commitment to doing exactly what the rating agencies think we should do, or that what the council members think we should do. And so my sense is they're trying to find something that would be relatively generic rather than handcuffing or a detail. But you guys tell me if I'm wrong.
You're right, Jim. That's what we're looking for.
And I think the trick is starting to figure out, what that would look like, and how could it be done in a way that would just enshrine that obligation on our government to do these things, no matter how they choose to do them in the details of their resolutions or their council policy.
And may I react?
Yeah, but please.
Yeah. Okay. So I hear what you're saying, and I understand the sort of what's behind all that. But I think this is one of those cases where I just say a terrible quote: "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." It's one of the areas that's not a source of concern for the rating agencies. If you look at the write-ups of our general obligation debt offering, especially, you'll see that the markets favor what we've been doing. We would have gotten negative pushback, negative feedback from them if that was not the case. We have not gotten negative feedback.
I wonder though if it would strengthen the position of the county. I understand, from a dollar standpoint, the ratings agencies are looking at percentages and total dollars, relative to the expenditures each year for the county. But to align the charter with the code, also giving you flexibility, the county flexibility to manage things with respect to reserves, as they have in the past. Obviously, the county's been doing a good job.
Sure.
But to align the charter, which I think one could argue that the authority for the code flows from the charter. So if both of them are aligned in language and in intent, it seems to me that would even strengthen the situation.
I hear what you're saying,
right?
But again, we're not getting. This is one of those areas where we don't change things unless it's necessary. I don't think that they're misaligned. I don't think the charter and the law are misaligned on this. The charter is the charter states sort of a broad. It gives you a broad overview of what should be done without filling any details at all. I think that's appropriate. I think the law is where you fill in all the details. The law, and when I say the law, I mean the law that's in the Montgomery County Code. I also mean the resolutions that the county council passes. So I think they are aligned. The difference between a policy and a procedure, or policy and procedures, because usually there's a lot of procedures with a policy, is the policies, the overarching viewpoint or mission statement, or however you want to characterize it. The policies are the nuts and bolts of how you do things. I think the nuts and bolts of how you do things in this respect is it's important for them to be subject to modification as circumstances warrant, more so than not. And note, we've only really adjusted the resolutions for the fiscal policies 3 times over 15 years. That means people are not like constantly trying to change things in order, for whatever reason they would be trying to change them. What it means is we've been very circumspect about reviewing these policies, making sure that we're at a point where something needs to be amended, it needs to be enhanced. The policies in 21 were a distinct enhancement over the previous policy that was there. The charter did not impinge on making any of those changes at all. It allows you to do that. And I think that's what you want the charter to do at this point.
So can I step in here a minute? Because the charter is not aligned with what you all do as an overall fiscal policy matter. The charter really talks in a brief paragraph about one particular piece of the county's reserves and caps that piece at 5%. So it's not really aligned with what you're doing. And all we're asking is, would it make sense to have that big picture of what you do, the multiple parts of the reserves in the charter, so that we make sure that some point down the road, some council doesn't get funny and decide that we don't need any of this stuff? Because the only thing that's in the charter is that 5% cap on the one piece of reserves. And so it is not aligned. It doesn't include any of the other stuff that you all do. We're not saying the stuff you do is bad. We think it's good. We just want to see about whether it makes sense to have that in the charter so that nobody can turn around later someday and say, no, we don't need to do this anymore.
Okay. As I said at the very beginning, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that I don't think it's beneficial to do that. I think what we've had and what we have today.
I understand, where you're coming from, but when you say it's not beneficial, I know it'd be a hard sell. Okay, I understand that. However, going forward, looking, well into the distance, wouldn't there be some benefit? I got 2 questions. Wouldn't it be some benefit really to have the charter be kind of updated? It hasn't been updated since 1968 with respect to reserve. The second thing is there's parts of the charter, especially in the budget process and some other things that are very specific, that do, you would say are procedural, tell you, on such and such a date, it has to be this has to be done on such and such a date. This has to be. So, having some more descriptive, updated language with respect to reserves, because the charter says nothing about reserves. Right. It says, it says surplus or unappropriated value. Right. So, basically, my 2 questions, wouldn't there, looking forward, be a benefit to amending or updating the charter? The politics aside.
Sure.
And then second of all, having a little bit more, providing some flexibility, but perhaps some more procedural things with respect to reserves in the charter.
Well, like I said, I would be concerned about how the markets would react, how the rating agencies would react if you codified it. I don't control what language is going to be in. I'm not sure that I agree with having everything that's in the charter the way it is the way it should be either. But what we're not discussing that today. I don't see. I mean, it sounds like the point is to make it so that a future county council can't make changes that you don't want them to make. The county council's elected, the county executive's elected. So I think there's a fine line to be trod between, who's doing what. They are the elected representatives of county taxpayers. So I'm not sure why you're worried about future councils. All the councils, I've worked with a lot of councils over the last 33 years here in Montgomery County, and I don't recall any of them being particularly fiscally undisciplined. Maybe not as disciplined as you might like, but I think that generally they have made good decisions over the years. They've had good staff that advises them on this. They've had good financial advisory firms advising them on this. In a pinch, if we need to, bond counsel weighs in on certain things. They don't weigh in on everything, of course, because the financial advisory firms and staff are very adept at that type of work. And there's been a good continuity of staff over the years where people come up through the ranks and have learned and acquired the collective wisdom, if you will, of the way Montgomery County does things. Montgomery County does things somewhat in a different way than others, and we tend to be more deliberative than maybe some other jurisdictions have been. You've all heard the term paralysis by analysis used by especially one former Montgomery Journal columnist who is from a very prominent county family over the years.
Lee.
What's that?
Blair Lee, maybe?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. or also known as B4. Yeah.
B3 was acting governor.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
I have a question. This is
Sure.
Sarah. I'm brand new to the commission, so I'm still piecing things together. But I have a question here. You said that rating agencies give us high ratings for our robust fiscal policies. And if there are changes in the charter, that wouldn't be seen as evergreen and as flexible by the agencies, or at least you said by at least one. Because I'm new at this, I'm still learning. What are the implications if the proposed changes to the charter, were adopted, were approved? What are the implications if the rating agencies don't see our policies as evergreen? What's a real life implication of that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's an excellent question. If they don't see our policy as allowing the flexibility that the current policy has, then we would probably be at risk of being downgraded. And being downgraded means, I know you know what being downgraded means, but the repercussions of being downgraded are an immediate increase in the cost of debt. But it's also an immediate increase in the cost of all your money services. All your banking services end up becoming more expensive. Anything to do with credit becomes more expensive. It's just more expensive to work if that is the case. And even if they didn't, the investors themselves, because remember, we issue debt. The debt is actually purchased by usually institutionals to start, but eventually individuals. They might end up bidding higher amounts regardless of what the rating agencies do. So this is sort of a sea change in the way we do things, moving from doing resolutions and laws, just regular Montgomery County Code, public local laws, to putting it in the charter. So you have to be really careful about how you do that especially on this particular topic, because this is one of the most important things that the ratings agencies are looking at. This is one of the pieces that is weighted the highest when they're looking at the ratings, the inherent credit worthiness of a jurisdiction. So it's really important that we don't do anything to sort of disturb what good has actually transpired over the many decades since we got our first AAA bond rating in the 1970s.
So you're saying that the rating agencies would not look kindly on having minimum standards in the charter?
Well, I'm not sure what the minimum standards are. So
we're not either yet. That's why we're having the discussion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm concerned that it wouldn't end up getting passed in a way that the rating agencies would look favorably on. I think that's a big risk, and it's not a risk that I would want to take. Given the fact that we only get good feedback from the rating agencies, Kate Stewart didn't talk about this year's ratings visit because it didn't happen when you met with her. You met with her in June, but we met with them in October, and Kate was there, and I wouldn't want to do anything to sort of upset that apple cart. It was astoundingly good. You had a question, sorry.
Yeah, if someone else has a question, please jump. Okay, I was just gonna ask about, go ahead, please.
Given that what we're talking about is a cap and not a floor,
Mhm.
I don't even know how to refer to all of the people who make the economics happen, but when policies are enacted, would they the people enacting these policies, not necessarily the council, but support staff, would they recognize that this 10% cap is not necessarily a target, but an allowance from 0 to 10%? Or would they always see 10% and think that is what we should aim for?
But when you say they,
I mean, your office.
My office does not see 10% as a cap. My office sees 10% as a floor. And the way we have been looking at reserves over the last several years is 10% is the minimum you can go to. It's the absolute minimum. And Kate Stewart talked about this a little bit, actually at some length in your June discussion, and noted that the council specifically did not even consider going down to 10% from, I think we're at 15 point something percent last in 2024, because they wanted an additional cushion over the 10%. We see the 10%, and I think council sees it the same way, although I won't put words into their mouths. I think they see it as a floor as well, and I think Kate's words in June meant that exactly. That 10%, we don't see it as a cap. The only cap is that 5% cap on the general fund unassigned or undesignated surplus. And that's not, I don't think that's anything that anybody would have to worry about. It has never been 5%. It's not likely to be 5%. The vast majority of the reserves are held in the Revenue Stabilization Fund, which has very specific requirements for use. Very, very specific requirements in the law for using it. So so we on the executive branch side, and I do believe council and council staff also think of the 10% as the floor, not as the ceiling. Yeah, but it's a floor that you want to be near, but above the floor if you can be. You try not to fall below the floor. If you fall below the floor, then the RSF actually has to be enhanced the next year over I think it's a 3-year refill requirement. But if it's just below 10, it wouldn't necessarily take that long. So, but it's definitely seen as a floor, not a ceiling.
I've got a couple of questions or comments. What you've been talking about the council all this time, but there's another player involved in this picture, and that's the county executive. Jim and Howard have been closer to county government than I have for a long time, but I know in the past there have been times when the executive and the council have not seen eye to eye on the budget. And does that affect the ratings in any way? And just if you have some insight onto that, I think it would be helpful.
I think that's a good question. The council and the executive often do not see the budget in the same way. I would say, in my experience, executive bodies and legislative bodies are not simpatico on any budget. Every player has their own view of what the budget should look like. But what's important here is that in Montgomery County, the county council holds the purse strings for the county. So the executive formulates a budget for the county council to review and adjust. And in Maryland counties, Montgomery County for many, many years was the only county where the council could adjust both upwards and downwards, whatever the county executive sent over. But typically the county council shaves off a bit of what the county executive sends over, at least in recent history, that's been the case. But the county council holds the purse strings. The county council has the final say on the budget. So, and the county council is now 11 people that have to substantially agree on what the final budget looks like.
And that gets to a second question I have, and that is that the charter, at least in relation to taxes, has set voting requirements for certain types of changes to the tax rates and so on. In some cases, there has to be an absolute unanimity of votes in order to enact some changes, and others require a simple majority. For the resolutions that the council enacts related to the budget, if they're making a change in policy, what is the voting requirement?
For the budgets, the budget has a majority requirement. Most of the supermajority requirements revolve around tax rates that you can set and things
Unknown caller.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so yeah, did you have any follow-ups on that? Did I
No.
answer the question? Okay.
You did.
Okay.
One of the questions we sent you over the weekend, having discussed this, having thought about it, if there was a change to the charter that were to be suggested, what type of flexibility would you want in that change? Do you have some specific needs or the requirements?
I honestly, without seeing language, I wouldn't want to react because it would really depend on what the word said. Yeah. I mean, honestly, for something like this. I mean, this is literally one of the most critical pieces for us. As again, I said it a little bit earlier, reserves are like one of the main rating items for the rating agency. So this is mission critical for my department. If we had language to look at, we would look at it internally. We would have comments on it. that we would keep to ourselves for a while we engaged a financial advisory firm to actually take a look at them and guide us on this. The financial advisory firms I didn't really explain exactly what they do, but they play.
This is like Davenport?
Yeah, Davenport. Yeah,
Okay.
Davenport. PFM, Prague. There's lots of them out there. Those are the three main ones that we use. We use Municap for other things. So what they would do for us is they look at things regarding how they think the rating agencies would react, and extending that, how the markets would react and how our bonds would be viewed and how our credit rating would be viewed. So that's what our financial advisor does. Our bond counsel actually takes a look at the legal requirements for debt under the law and under the law, both state law, federal law, and local law, and they guide us with their advice on those things. They help write everything as well. But the financial advisory firms are the ones we go to first when something like this would come up. And we would ask them, do you think this would cause us any problems? And they would tell us.
Or be helpful.
Yes. Yeah. They would definitely tell you if it would be helpful. They would have Davenport would have put this into their report that they gave to us earlier this year if they thought this would be helpful, because this came up in 2010, and the Charter Review Commission back then decided not to change 310 of the charter because of these types of issues. I think you could go back and probably look at or get the record from that. You probably have already actually done that, but any self-respecting FA and our staff would have made that recommendation if we thought that it was beneficial. When I mean beneficial, what I mean by beneficial is beneficial to the operations of the county and frankly to the taxpayers, because what we're trying to do is make sure that we get the best deal on our debt for the taxpayers. We want the lowest cost debt for the taxpayers. We also want to make sure that we're a going concern always. And all this sort of feeds into that as well. We're a going concern. We intend to always be a going concern, no matter what people think about rating agencies and debt and everything like that. Our main goal is to continue and to be able to fund all the services that Montgomery County residents rely on every year. It's you are very familiar with the service level in Montgomery County. I live in a different county. The service level here is radically different from most counties in Maryland, and we're able to do that partially because of what we have done over the years, and substantially because of the way all of this has been managed. You'll notice that if you read the ratings reports on Montgomery County from the agencies that are rating us, they talk about the quality of our fiscal personnel, if you will, the quality of decisions coming out of the county, and they think of the county as Mr. Knoxline had mentioned earlier. They think of the county as one thing. I don't think this is the second part of your question, which I forgot to answer. I don't think they are looking at like the political battles between the political players. They're looking at the end result. And the end result is hopefully always a sustainable budget. And that sustainable budget is funded partially by very low cost debt that is afforded by the fact that we have all these good policies in place. We're considered to be well run financially and fiscally. And because of that, the cost of doing business for us is about as low as it could be. And again, I'd like to just keep from upsetting that apple cart.
Okay. Another comment or question, and that is that, to my mind, there's sort of two elements here. One is the dealing with the risk of catastrophic events, and the requirement of the county, if county operations are in some way affected by that event, to get back to business, as you said, to be able to restore the level of services and capabilities that existed before that catastrophic event destroyed whatever it destroyed. And the other is the ongoing need to maintain the capital assets of the county, the courthouses and the county buildings and the schools and so on, to keep them operational and to make repairs to the major systems like roofs and elevators and so on, which are costly, but which are required in order for those assets to be useful. And, are there other things that you're considering as you determine what the reserves amounts should be?
Well, that's another excellent question. We have a conversation every year. And one of the things that you are probably aware of, that sort of is part of this discussion, is snow removal. And now it's become, since the derecho in, I think it was 2012 or something like that, it's become snow removal and other acts of nature, acts of God, that have a sometimes profound impact on the county budget every year. They always have an impact. And so one of the things that we're constantly thinking about is what the odds of something like this happening might be. And some of that is actually built into the budget itself. And some of it is built into the way we sort of think about the reserves. And part of it came out in that Davenport review that you just mentioned, capital reserve. It would be a new capital reserve. And so that is something that I believe the council is going to take very seriously when they actually start looking at that report. I think it's worth discussing. But within the last 10 years or so, the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, might be a little bit more than 10 years, time marches on. They have been discussing and building best practices around the fact that not everything is discernible or forecastable or projectable. And so therefore, one should take into account happenstances that don't occur very frequently. Some people think of them as black swan events, but others, they're just the normal, odd, very disruptive, natural things that happen: hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, derechos, big winds that are neither hurricanes nor tornadoes. So I think those are very much always in our thoughts, and thinking like that is behind that particular capital reserve that is talked about in the Davenport study on reserves.
So to get back to a sort of a key question for me, if the charter had a provision that required the council or the county government to establish and maintain reserves without a floor, without a cap, and just to have a process for managing reserves, would that affect the bonds rating agencies' view of the county?
Yeah, that's a good question too. It really depends on how it's written, and if it's broad, like your first paragraph on that, states that the county must have reserves and a policy for use and refill. You didn't use those words exactly, so sorry about that. But that sounds like it's something that wouldn't do grievous damage. But again, the devil's in the details. So if we have language to react to, if you put something down in writing, we can take a look at it. But if it's very broad and just says the county must have reserves, I think that's implied actually in the charter already. But yeah, if it's, we would happily take a look at whatever language you're planning on putting in there. Again, though, history shows that it has not been necessary. And I kind of shy away from doing unnecessary things. Unnecessary things sometimes add complexity or cause problems that we don't necessarily see at inception. And so if it's not broke, don't fix it, or don't upset the apple carts. But on this thing in particular,
I think we're all aware that there's a two-step process. So whatever we recommend has to be reviewed and approved by the council before it ever gets to the ballot. And then we have to have a story that voters will be sympathetic to and support. And we haven't wrestled with those that well yet, but we're still trying to figure it out.
Understood. Thank you.
Let me call on Dylan. He's had his hand raised for a little while. Dylan?
Mike, can you clarify, why do you think the requirement to have a reserve is implied by the charter?
I didn't hear. I couldn't hear that.
Could you clarify why you think that the requirement to have a reserve is implied by the charter?
Oh, I thought chapter
Section 310.
Section 310.
Yeah, there's no mention of a reserve, and it's
but an unappropriated surplus is a reserve. So I'd just sort of say, don't get bogged down in terminology. The terminology that is in the charter isn't terminology that we use anyway, but we understand, what the charter is supposed to mean. I think the way it's written, that's what it says, that those are reserves. Unappropriated surplus is a reserve. So.
Okay.
It's a reserve capped at 5%, though.
It's the RSF is in the law, and it doesn't have to be in the charter. The RSF is in the law, and it has very specific requirements for use. And it's highly regarded by the rating agencies and the debt markets.
Mike, you may be referring to the phrase that says in any other fund. In other words, the 5% cap applies to the general fund, but the phrase may accumulate earned surplus in any fund, right? Appropriated or unappropriated. And it just the fact that it says any other fund to me suggests that it's talking about other than the 5% cap on the general fund.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you mean that total reserves are capped at 5%?
No.
Okay.
It refers to the cap as the cap on the surplus in the general fund, but because there's also a reference to any other fund that says it may accumulate surplus in any other fund, it's the worst use of the word other that suggests that there may be what we're calling reserves in funds other than the general fund where we have a cap.
Right. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, we don't. I mean, just for the sake of argument, the budget has an amount in it, and I know this is going to sound ridiculously basic, but the budget gets passed by the county council. It has a certain dollar amount that is budgeted, but that's literally never the amount that is spent, and it's never the amount that is raised because as we go through a year, We don't spend exactly that amount. Usually we spend less than that amount, and we don't take in the amount of revenues that we had expected. Recent history says we take in more. Hopefully that'll continue to be the case. So the budget amount is one thing, but what ends up happening in the end is something that is usually slightly different from what the budget amount is. And it all depends on how the budget is managed and how the revenues are attained. We've been very good on revenue attainment over the last 5 years, much higher than expected over the last 5 years. I need a piece of wood to knock on now.
I don't think your table there is wood.
Yeah, it's I think it has wood product in it somewhere.
So we really appreciate you hearing. Before I let you go, I have really 2 fairly quick questions for you. First of all, I introduced you as the director of the Department of Finance. I failed to give you a chance to give us just a brief synopsis of your history with the county government, because your testimony has been very valuable. But I do want the record to reflect, the experience you bring to this, other than your current title. So can you, just for the record, can you just give us a real quick synopsis of your background?
Sure. Yeah. In 1988, I started working for the what is now the Department of Budget and Management at the state. It is the governor's budget department, the executive branch's budget department. I was there for nearly 4 years. And then I came to Montgomery County in October of 1992. I was hired by the finance director, a gentleman named Timothy L. Firestein. I think many of you are familiar with Tim. He was a man of enormous stature in government finance and budgeting, and rightly so. I came in 92, and I came to help with legislative issues, both with the Maryland General Assembly and with the County Council. And over time, my portfolio grew enormously, and I was responsible for a lot of things. And I ended up running our what is now our Division of Fiscal Management. Our Division of Fiscal Management does a lot of different things. One of the things it does is it manages the county's debt. It manages the county's cash. It manages the county's banking. It manages the public election fund. It manages the commercial property assessed clean energy program, so-called CPACE. It does all of the fiscal analysis for legislation that is tax related. It does all of the analysis that is required of my department, the finance department, on master plans, sector plans, the development that is required, that is asked of us, any legislation that we need to look at. We do all the revenue estimating in the Division of Fiscal Management, and I'm probably missing some things, but those I think are the main things. After I ran fiscal management for several years, I ran the Treasury Division for more years, and I became the director, acting in an acting capacity in 2019. And after they asked me 5 or 6 times, I accepted the challenge to become the full-time director in early 2020. When I was in Treasury Division, it's not what you think it is necessarily. Our Treasury Division is the tax people. They collect all of the taxes for the county, except for income taxes, which are collected by the Maryland Office of the Controller. And they do all the billing for all the property taxes. But all the excise taxes they collect along with the property taxes, they do all the accounting for those things. in that division, and then the accountants and the controllers division, because the Department of Finance has 5 or 6 prime divisions, depending on how you look at it. But they're mostly the taxing authority. So I did that for 6 years before I was asked to be the director. So, and I've been here, like I said, 33 years.
Wow. All right, so I have one more question. With all that experience, I'm sure this next question will be easy for you. So, there is currently a petition circulating, a citizen's petition that would be a ballot initiative, and the proposed ballot initiative would revise Charter Section 305, which has to do with the approval of the budget. And we currently have a charter provision in 305. It requires, if the budget is going to spend beyond what the change in the consumer price index suggests, then it requires a supermajority of the council to approve that budget with 7 votes instead of 6. And the ballot initiative suggests that it would change the charter to go from supermajority to a unanimous vote at the council. I don't know if you've looked at that petition or you have any view on it, but I want to give you a chance to address that if you have any views on it.
Yeah, I think it's attachment 1 on this agenda.
It is part of attachment 1. That's true.
I didn't put great thought into this. I would say I think that the First Amendment, it looks like it's amending the name of the CPI item. It sort of changes it to the current name. I don't have any real issue with that. I think, I mean, this is just my personal opinion and not the opinion of the finance director, but all current council members means one person has the real say. So, you know, that in my book is tyranny of the minority. And I don't personally believe that's mostly a good idea. I think it's rarely a good idea to have one person be able to veto what everybody else wants. But that's just my personal opinion. And it has nothing to do with me as the finance director. I just don't think that's a good policy generally. It might be a good policy in some areas. I don't think it's a good policy here, though. So,
well, other than the political control of how many people have to make the decision, do you see that change in language that's being proposed as having any impact on the actual spending or the actual budgeting for the county, other than the political part of it? How many votes you need?
Well, I don't think I can answer that. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it probably would change. Yeah, I think it would. I'm not sure exactly how it would change it. I would have to think about that. I would guess that it would change the way executives budget, potentially, although it's not clear that it would. You know, the executive, at least the current executive, he promulgates a budget that he believes is the best budget. And I think that generally that's what everybody does. I think every council member, as they're going through the budget, has their own view of what is worthy of what expenditures are worthy of spending and what are not. So it might not. I really don't know. And that, like you said, that's probably more a political question than it is a budgeting question. I just personally just don't think it's good policy to circumscribe it to that level and have it be subject to potentially the whim of one person, or, well, it would be, it only have to be one person.
Well, there is a precedent for it. The charter already has 1 or 2 provisions. that require a unanimous vote. So,
Yes, and I won't comment on those, but I'm not sure that those are the best idea either. So, yeah. But
Okay,
again, that's just a personal opinion. So,
so that takes care of my question. Does any other of our commission members have any more questions for Mike before we let him go?
I have a question.
Okay, I couldn't tell who that was. Oh, Howard? Okay.
Howard, yeah, thanks. Thank you, Mike, for your expertise and for your great help to the county and to us. I guess what I'm hearing you say is why change? And I understand, and I'm sympathetic to that approach. You mentioned the bond agencies. Is there something called a watch list? And if so, what does it mean? And has Montgomery County ever been on it?
hey, I'm sorry, what?
A watch list?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
What is it?
absolutely.
What-
We
Are we
had,
on it?
yeah, yes, we were. Yes, in 2010. Yes.
Okay, but we're
Yeah.
not on it now.
No, we are not. No, not even close.
Okay.
Whose list
Yeah.
is that? Whose list is the watch list?
The watch lists are, I don't know what each rating agency actually calls the list of jurisdictions that are at risk for a downgrade for whatever reason. So yeah, those are sort of like, it's the difference between a hurricane warning, and a hurricane watch. It's three levels. There are levels for the rating agencies as well, where they reach out and they say, hey, we have to talk, or you have a problem, and you should address it prescriptively and quickly, things like that. So yeah, we have not been on a watch list since 2010, when half of it seemed like half the country was on the watch list. So
Yeah, and related to that, can you put a percentage on how much of the county budget is de facto mandated and how much is discretionary?
I could not even begin to do that. Just sitting here, sorry. No, I guess it depends on what you consider mandated. If it's in the law, is it mandated, or is there another level of requirement that is not like codified or I don't think there's anything in resolution that requires a particular spending. But yeah, no, I'd have to talk to the budget people about that. I'll actually ask them about it.
would it be education? Education spending would be
Well,
part
I
of the
think
mandated?
that's an excellent point. I think that it is mandatory that we fund education.
Right.
So but I think the question was more, well, actually that's a sort of a different, maybe a slightly different take than what Mr. Dennis said.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Howard was getting at, but
Yeah. And also, when we were in Annapolis, there was something called the Cooper-Hughes bill, the Cooper-Hughes law.
Yeah.
Familiar with that at all?
I-
Paul Cooper was the head of fiscal services, and Harry Hughes went on to be governor. I
Oh,
think.
Harry Hughes. Oh, yeah.
But that allocated money to the counties. I don't know if that's still in existence or if it's anything that could be changed. In other words, could we get more money from the state? Right.
Yeah, I won't go on the record as seriously doubting that, but I doubt that, especially now. Remember, Maryland is talking about $1.5 billion budget problem, immediate. So I don't see that. I'm not really familiar with Cooper Hughes. I came up in the era of William S. Ratchford II. as
Bill
the-
Ratchford. Bill
Yeah,
Ratchford.
Ratchford, yeah, or
Ratch.
Ratch, as we all loved him. So, yeah. I think after 1991, it's kind of it's more miss than hit on enhancing state aid. Blueprint it may be an exception to that, the Blueprint for Education, and that doesn't affect Montgomery County to the at least so far, and not in the near future, nearly to the extent that affects other jurisdictions. But I'll talk to OMB about what they consider mandatory and what they consider discretionary spending, and I'll see what they have to say.
So again, looking to folks who are in Annapolis, there was a senator by the name of Jim Clark who
Yeah.
represented Howard County and part of Montgomery County, and he went on to be president of the Senate for a while. And he used to say about some things of a budgetary nature, we may not need it, but if we ever need it, we'll have it.
Yeah.
In other words, as a cautionary backstop. And I think that's what some are thinking about the need for more control on the reserves. I'm not, I don't know if it's necessary to do that, but I sense that that's part of the feeling behind any possible charter amendment that might arise from these deliberations.
I definitely understand that, and I definitely understand the feeling behind it. I'd rather rely on the data and the history and what we know, and what we've lived over the last 15 years since the first fiscal policies were formalized in resolutions and in the law, is that we're doing things what the outside world considers the right way. So, and I'm perfectly fine with that so far. Honestly, if we thought we needed to put something in the charter, we would have had a charter item sent over to you. I think in this case, I think the risk is not necessarily something that I would want to incur at this point. The risk of doing something that might actually have an unanticipated negative effect, because it would be unanticipated because you're not looking to try to do something negative, and I think everybody understands that. But it's those unanticipated consequences that tend to bite us, along with other things like 1991. So,
and that's an excellent point. And I think, am I correct generally that the biggest issue for you in coming up with a budget, and likewise for the council in considering it, is how much is enough?
yeah.
And how much is too little? How much is too much? And actually getting down to the nitty-gritty of the numbers when you're dealing with public education and police protection and the parks, and it's really comes down to some very small numbers that can add up. And that's really why I was asking about what's discretionary and what's de facto mandatory,
Right.
because it is an issue as to how much actual control elected officials do have in terms of all of the mandates, and perhaps the desirability for elected officials elected by the people to have more authority to deal with more aspects of the budget.
Yes, I totally get where you're coming from. Honestly, you lived it in both the state senate and the county council, and I think if you're looking at it from that perspective, you're looking at it as most of the budget is mandatory, because you're not going to get rid of police, you're not going to get rid of fire and rescue services. You under the Maryland Constitution, you can't get rid of education, and you wouldn't want to anyway, obviously, and you don't want to. But so much of the budget is in these very expensive things, because they take lots of personnel and they take lots of equipment and they take lots of infrastructure to provide. And those are just the ones that I think everybody would consider mandatory. Then you've got your health and human services and your libraries and your recreation and everything that follows from that, not to mention all your so-called central services or core agencies that actually do all the work so that all the services can be provided. I mean, if you think about it, and I think you're all familiar with Montgomery County government well enough to sort of understand, there's a core of four or five, six departments that exist so that all the other departments can actually provide all these services. And so is that mandatory funding? Well, I mean, the only department that is required in the county code and the county charter is the Department of Finance. So and the county attorney is required, but not necessarily the office of the county attorney. So but everything else is not in there as required, but a lot of things are really required. Montgomery County taxpayers, you all require them. So,
and as you mentioned, people want to live in Montgomery County.
yes,
This is a county people want to move to, and so we must be doing something right.
Jim, I hate to interrupt, but I have to leave for another meeting.
Okay.
All right.
One very last quick
Are we going to
question.
reduce your quorum? And
Okay.
but I have to leave. So
Are the meetings in
No.
New York still in New York, or are they virtual?
we have been doing virtual meetings since the last time we were in New York was 2019. And I can tell you, because the analysts, we talk to the rating agencies throughout the year, because they have follow-up questions throughout the year. They have reviews of debt, of outstanding issues that they have to perform on a regular basis. So we're in contact with them every month of the year. So we are aware that it's frankly less complicated for us to do this virtually than for us to show up in New York or for us to invite them to come down to Montgomery County. Although I wouldn't be surprised if next year we invite them to come down to Montgomery County, at least as a courtesy, because it's good to have them see what's going on in the county. I know you read the news and you read like blogs and stuff like that. I try to not pay too close attention to some of that stuff, but I see a lot of negative stuff about the county and some of these blogs. And I work on the 15th floor of the building across the street, and I can see all the construction going on with an eyesight around me. It's not it doesn't seem like it's all stopped, even though that's what it sounds like some people are saying. When we invite them to come down, we tour the county with them. We have people who run things around the county, both private sector and in the government, sometimes schools, sometimes Montgomery College, could be a private concern, talking about something that they're doing in the county to enhance the county's economy. So we haven't invited them in a long time. The rating analysts have been very happy to do it online. I kind of am loath to upset that apple cart as well. I mean, it's a lot less expensive for us not to send a bunch of people up to New York, especially if we're going to get the same result. But that being said, as a courtesy, if nothing else, we should extend the invitation, invite them to come down and see for themselves what Montgomery County looks like.
Right. I think when you say especially if we get the same results, I think that's the key.
Yes.
if it'll help to
Absolutely.
have them here, bring them here. They can see Washington and see the sights and so on. But the key is to be heard and to be listened to and to be able to get fair treatment.
Absolutely agree.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike, so much. We're getting pretty close to the end of our time here. So on behalf of all of us here on the commission, we really thank you for coming and talking to us today. And the public is now better informed about this issue. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
Right.
You're great. Thanks.
So with that, we're hitting the end of our agenda. I wanted to give everybody a chance. We only had one member of the public participate in our listening session on November 19th. Briefly, if there's anybody who wants to provide any comments on the listening session and the testimony we heard, this would be the time to raise those points. Does anybody have anything they want to say in reaction to the listening session? Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to say on this topic? Because if not, I'm going to sort of just give a couple of minutes of what I hope we will do to move this forward at our next meeting.
No, I'll just second what you had to say. It was very helpful having Mike here. It's very helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I third that. I thought that was extremely helpful and gave us a very much needed perspective.
So we have been talking about this topic now, I think, for probably most, if not all, of 2025. And our next meeting is our first meeting of 2026, and we are approaching the time when we really need to, I don't want to say wrap it up, but bring it to some sort of a culmination in terms of our decision on how we will move forward. What I'm hoping to do at our next meeting is have those who want to put a specific proposal on the table to vote on together and present it to us, and hopefully in writing, because it gives people something concrete. But we're not limited to one. I mean, you know, you view this as it may have different layers, and there may be the folks in the working group who want to present one proposal on behalf of the working group, or maybe there are different layers they want to present. But I'm hoping to have that in writing early enough in January so that I can include it on the agenda and attach copies. And that really requires that I have received whatever it is by January 6th, because I have to submit the written agenda to staff that week, a day or two after that, so that it's timely and folks have a chance to look at it before our actual meeting date. So I'm going to ask the working group and anybody else who has anything they want to put on the table as a proposal to actually start considering it with yays and nays by January 6th. Of course, that won't preclude people from bringing something up at the meeting from the floor, but it is more helpful if we do have it in advance, and it's in time to consider it in advance. Anybody have any comments on that?
Jim, just real quick, Jim, for the agenda, it has to be posted by Monday, so 2 days before, for the Maryland Open Meetings Act. So that's the deadline, will be probably Monday at 12, or I would need it to be able to look at it and get it posted.
Right, and that's why I have adopted the practice of sending it to you on Thursday.
I appreciate that.
Thanks to look at it on Friday. Sometimes when I say Thursday, I mean Thursday after close of business, but usually I get it to you on Thursday, and it gives you folk and your staff a chance to look at it on Friday so that you're comfortable with posting it on Monday. That's what we're doing. So that's why I picked the 6th.
Perfect. No, but I'm just, if you need the leeway that week, I can get it up if I get it by Monday at 12.
Okay. So that's where we are at that. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions on that process?
I have a question. When does this issue get brought up to the council?
So council, of course, can take it up anytime it wants because they're where we're looking at it, but we will include all of this in the written report that we submit to the council.
Okay. That's part of the report.
First, and that's one of the that's, I don't say it's a flaw, but that's one of the quirks of our process, which is the date for our report is set in the charter. But that's a deadline, not a mandate, but it is a deadline. And then they have a certain amount of time. They can consider it for as long as they want. But if they wanted to put something on the ballot, they have to meet the Board of Elections deadlines for how to get something on a ballot if they wanted actually to do that. They may not want to do that. So, But they have from May 1st all the way until sometime in early August to decide if they wanted to put something on a ballot. So.
Okay. And how much of this do we want to have figured out? Like, are we trying to kind of leave it as a yes or no question, or get more into the details of what exactly maybe policies, for example?
So we have two, it's really two, I view it as two separate opportunities. It's just, we have the opportunity when we submit our report to provide them with as little or as much as we want in terms of our viewpoints, the substance of the work we've done, what we've studied, what we've looked at, what we think. We could put anything in our report, and I have been very willing to put into our report not just the quote majority view of this body, but to allow any member of our body, if that wants to write a separate concurring opinion or dissenting opinion, to do so.
Okay.
So what we put in the report is up to us, and it can include a recommendation that we voted on as a majority position that we recommend they take a certain action, or if we want to recommend they just study something, we could do that. I mean, it's up to us to decide how far we want our recommendations to go, and it may or may not be. We may or may not be unanimous. We were unanimous on at least one thing last year, but on most of the things we voted on, we were split in some fashion. So,
thank you.
You get a lot of latitude. All right, so that's where we are procedurally. I'll give staff a minute. Is there anything staff has that it wants to bring up as an update or a comment?
I don't have anything in particular. I know previously you discussed possibly having another listening session in January or February. Is that still on the table, or?
At this point, I don't see that. I think just from a timing perspective, I think we've probably reached the point where we need to move on and just make a decision. I think the question with listening sessions will be it wouldn't be on this topic. I think if there's some other topic that comes up at a later meeting and we decide to pursue that topic and we decide to consider taking a position on that topic, I think at that point we can decide whether we want another listening session. It would probably not occur in the January-February timeframe. My guess is it would occur after we come to that conclusion. It'd probably be more in the March, April, May timeframe.
Okay. And if that is the case, it would likely have to be virtual or held somewhere not here, because I'd be right in the middle of budget, and I don't think we'd be able to schedule it to be at least in this building if you're doing it in March, April, or May.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm fine with my personally opinion is that virtual is fine. The public likes virtual because they can attend from any place at any time, and it's easier for them. So I don't have a problem with virtual.
Okay, thank you. But no, I don't have any other updates from our end.
Okay. Last call for anything else anybody wants to raise before we adjourn? No? Okay, thank you. Then I will deem that to be unanimous consent for adjournment, and it is 9:32, so we're right on time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.